Here we are talking about blame again. The news is filled with it. And I'd like to look specifically at the environment today. It's hard to hear, it's hard to stomach, it's hard to really fathom the harm that's happening daily. The natural and the man-made disasters, sometimes, oftentimes, it's harder still to see the ways that we are participating in the shared reality of now. I don't want to be associated with those kinds of storms. Not really. And it's so much easier to blame others, to blame the faceless others, much easier. Blaming the powers that be, right? It's easier than looking more locally at what I'm doing specifically. But as folks interested in not causing harm, all of us who are practicing mindfulness, we're interested, so we say, in not causing harm. So we must look at the ways in which we do cause harm knowingly and unknowingly. It's important for us to consider those ways and discern then how to be more skillful with what it is we're doing. So climate change. The degree to which we participate just as citizens, good tax-paying citizens, buying goods, traveling. As soon as we become consumers, we are participating in the world at large, and we are implicated in the collective harm that is on full display. No joke, it's really true. It's hard to hear. As consumers of the world, we live in the world of haves and have-nots. We live in a world of us and them. We actively create that. We're actively participating in that, knowingly and unknowingly, creating this divide and creating harm. Buddha suggested that we look another way. He suggests that there's a way of relating that illuminates our common humanity, our interconnectedness. Now, that's a good idea. That is a very different kind of relationship than a consumer relationship, isn't it? It points out that we are part of a larger web of life. Mindfulness recognizes that we all live in the same aquarium, each dependent upon ourselves and each other for our survival and well-being. Each fish, each plant, the water we swim in, the air we breathe is shared. Each life has its own nature, as well as being part of a larger whole of Mother Nature, of stardust. So how do we participate in the collective harm that we see reflected back at us every day? Well, this line of questioning is really good to ponder as we move through the day. What is our impact? What is our impact? And what is our intention? Often they don't line up, especially when disaster happens. What were you intending to be the result? And what is the result? Every time I hear a natural disaster, my stomach drops. Every time. No one intended for us to be living in a precarious situation like this, but here we are. Here we are with yet another sign of climate change. And I could easily move into despair. I could easily say, well, what good can I do? The problem's too big. It was a problem before I was even born. So what can I do now? As Bill said, you know, the family in the jungle who gets lost in the jungle, and the father says, first order of business, who's to blame? Who's to blame? Right? Yeah. Well, I'd say to the question of what can I do now, I'd say there's a lot we can do. A lot, actually. A million small moves that you and I can make part of our daily life, so that we can live in accord with our values of non-harm and goodwill, and not live out of the values that are imposed upon us and that we have been just conditioned into. Every time I wake up to the uncomfortable feeling of being implicated because of my participation in, say, the use of fossil fuels, not so absurd when I consider my air travel. Not so absurd at all. Not so absurd when I consider the driving of cars, how I've driven a car my whole life up until a few years ago. Yes, I have unconsciously, unintentionally caused harm to the environment by participating as a consumer, by driving cars, by flying, for the pleasure of it, and also for Dharma teaching. So these days, I think about that. I think about the cost-benefit ratio. To whatever degree I am to blame, I am implicated, I want to know. This is not an easy awareness. It's honest, but it's not easy. It's scary, but it's not easy to see what's happening. But if I can stand there and I can listen and really consider, then I can ask questions like, do we need to rent a car or can we take a bus? 5 years ago, we gave up our car in favor of public transportation. That was a choice. It's convenient to have a car. I've had a car since I was 16 years old, and truly, it meant emancipation. Truly. Now, right, in my older years, I live in the city, I live in public transportation. Why do I need a car? We don't need a car, so we don't have one. We don't miss it either. Yes, sometimes it's a little more hassle figuring out the bus or the train, but I'd rather do that, actually. Right? So what can we do? It requires a certain kind of self-reflection to consider what we can do. And what we can do not only affects what's happening in the immediate, it also is going to affect future generations that I will never see. The more that I can conserve, the more that I can consider and take care of this planet Earth, I am leaving that for those who come after me. That is being a good ancestor. Right? But maybe we realize actually that we need a car. We need a car because of our work. We need a car because of our family needs. But we realize, oh, you know what? I don't have to take the airplane. I don't have to go on that family trip. We can do some other family trip, maybe. Maybe we can recognize right here and right now what the impact is. Maybe we can, the next time we go to the grocery store, we can really consider the food we are buying only as much as we need, buying less of meat products, maybe buying less food in packages. And gratefully now we're being encouraged to bring our own bags. Hey, that's novel. We only have 1 million of them in our cupboards, all of us. What a novel idea. Let's use what we have. Brilliant, right? Instead of disposable, maybe we can think about buying products that last longer, that actually have a longer shelf life. I have furniture that I've had since I was a child. I have my parents' bedroom set in one of our rooms. Reuse, recycle, repurpose. Bill was the trash man for our 4-year retreat. Bill was the trash man. He would grumble when we would come out of retreat. He would grumble about how people were very careless about when they would throw recycling into trash. And he got very good at sorting out the recycling from the trash. And recognizing this is a way in which we are typically not careful, right? And so there's a learning, a relearning, a waking up to the choices that we have been conditioned to make, like herds of cattle. We've been conditioned to herded this way. Use everything disposable. Who cares about the landfill? Use everything disposable for your convenience, of course. Except it's not just for our convenience. Everyone needs to be considered. All beings need to be considered. The habitat that I live in needs to be considered. You see, truly, we have been educated out of our bodies and out of being in relationship with the natural world and out of relationship with each other. And we have been educated into much more of a consumer mindset. Now, not. It's from the heart of the matter, from the heart. Detached from the heartfelt desire to survive and thrive, really, what allows us to survive and thrive, which is our awareness of our interconnection. So even within this currency of culture that we have going on, we can make choices that count. There's an abundance of information available to us to make small moves that will make a difference. Oh, we want to feel the prick of blame. We want to feel the prick of, oh, I'm implicated in this. It's not just about all of them. It's actually about me too, and what I do, how I move through the world. And if we can see that, if we can honestly stand witness and feel the unpleasantness that arises in our body, in our hearts, and our minds, when we recognize that we participated, well, that also gives us a clue for how to move forward and make different choices. The very thing. I would say that I think what's pivotal is that we begin to reflect from that posture of mindfulness, non-judgmental posture of friendly, caring attention. That's liberating. That allows us to see choices and options. That allows us to unhook from our past conditioning so that we can step outside of simply looking at our needs and looking at our needs in relation to all the other beings that have needs too. And that we can learn to see that living locally is actually, it's a much more global kind of a local, if you know what I mean. What we do affects other people all over the world, right? What we do. And we want to feel when something's amiss. We want to feel that. What can we do to make small little course corrections in our life that will have an impact and ripple out from there? That's what it's all about in the practice. We want to wake up to see what's going on. We want to feel the impact of what has happened, of what is happening. Oh my goodness, feel the grain of truth. Oh my goodness, it feels awful. And then see what's possible. What's possible? How do I want to live in accord with my values? I don't want to cause harm. So how might I not cause harm? How might I actually be a bit more conscious of how I move through the world vis-a-vis attending to my environment and those who live with me in that environment? We can do this. We really can do this. There are 1,000 small moves we can make. We have to first wake up to see what's really going on. Allow ourselves to feel the imprint of the harm. Impress upon us the need to make these course corrections. Let ourselves be the perfectly imperfect human beings that we are and make the necessary course corrections so we can live mentally and wisely in the world. Thank you for your kind attention.